you have nothing to lose and you want to play spoiler. So I think it is way more. I think it's more likely they win 2 than win 0. I think they'll ultimately probably just steal 1. Welcome into the Hot Read Podcast. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. We are live here at BoomBozz Craft Pizza Taphouse in Spring Hill, as we are each and every Thursday before Thursday Night Football. And I'm joined, as always, by producer JT, who you can follow on social media at JT_Runke. JT, we're a little bit late today, a little bit of troubleshooting today.
Yes.
And we look a little bit different if you're watching us on YouTube, but it's because we had to improvise, adapt, and overcome our circumstances.
Yes, we as we always seem to
have to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it is. Maybe it's because it's the winter solstice or something like that. I don't know.
It is the shortest day of the year.
Yeah.
Is it weirding you out with the sun setting at like 4:15?
No, I'm weird that way and I like it.
So. I know you like it, but does it mess? Because with me, I look out my window, it's my work day, and I see sundown, and then my brain goes, time to be done with work today. But it's like, oh wait, no, it's 4:15. It's not nighttime.
Yeah, I think I'm just a nocturnal creature. So my productivity ramps up.
Are you gonna retire to like Anchorage in the winter?
Probably,
when it's just no sunlight all the time, yeah. Seasonal depression as much as possible.
Yep, I think that's the case here.
Well, we appreciate everybody that's tuning in with us live today. We, of course, are previewing the Titans and the Seahawks coming up this Sunday at Nissan Stadium here in Nashville. Little Christmas Eve football, and we don't know who the quarterback is going to be for the Tennessee Titans, but we're going to talk about what it might look like for either of those guys. Should we get Will Levis? Should we get Ryan Tannehill? What that's going to mean for the Titans game plan. We're, of course, going to go through all of our regular Thursday activities, such as some stats and numbers that JT has for us, some things we need to know ahead of this Christmas Eve matchup. Then we've got the news with producer JT and our favorite segment of the week, the Best Bet Gauntlet, Week 16 edition. We continue to make truly an astonishing amount of money. We're having such success this year. We ended last year on such a high note. We were constantly saying, enjoy it now, because there's no way we do it again next year. There's no way we hit at this rate. And so far, we're managing to surpass that. So we're looking to keep that rolling this week. All that and more coming up. First of all, if you are with us live, we appreciate you tuning in. Do us a favor, a couple of things. First of all, if you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, head on over to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. That's where you're going to find this live stream. And in the comment section of that video is where you can be a part of today's conversation. Any thoughts, questions, comments you might have on the Titans versus the Seahawks, we'd love to hear from you today. And while you're there, hit subscribe on Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. It is free to you, and it's very helpful to us. So do us a favor, throw us a bone, hit that subscribe button, and share the video with a friend if you would be so kind. We're trying to get as many live eyeballs as humanly possible. Hit like, hit retweet on Facebook, on Twitter, all of those good things. Thank you in advance for doing that. And I got to tell you about our wonderful and amazing sponsor, BoomBozz Craft Pizza Taphouse, a fine pizza establishment. We love being here each and every Thursday. JT, I woke up this morning, genuinely the first thought that came into my brain was, I get to have BoomBozz tonight. And I spent all day stoked, looking forward to our, at this point, traditional Thursday evening, one of my favorite days of the week. And that is made possible by the fine people here at BoomBozz and the fine food and drink options they have. Of course, we've got, I keep forgetting who's playing tonight, the Rams and the Saints. Rams Saints.
Which I think could.
How could I forget such an amazing matchup over and over?
Honestly,
could be sneaky good.
It could be sneaky good.
Like bad good, like two bad teams, two mid teams.
I don't know. I mean, would you rather have this, or would you rather have the Panthers Bears all over again? Like, I feel like we have to count our blessings here. Like,
sure.
There are actual players I want to watch.
There were worse matchups that we had to suffer through this year, but there were certainly better. But we're going to enjoy it nonetheless. We've got a couple of guys here that we're going to be hanging out with this evening. We appreciate them coming through, and you could do the same. Come on out to BoomBozz Craft Pizza Taphouse here in Spring Hill. About 20-25 minutes out of town if you're in the Nashville area. Very easy drive down 65, and we would love to hang out with you at the bar watching the game. We'll get you a drink. We'll get you a bite. It'll be a good time. Just come on out. We'd love to see you. Okay. JT, I know today you've got some numbers for us to run down. Unfortunately, we've reached the portion of the season with this Titans team where There isn't a ton to talk about in terms of matchup preview. It's, it's a known commodity. We continue to beat this team is bad horse into its grave further and further. But we do have some new thoughts on this game, and the fact that we don't know who's playing quarterback is lending itself to the intrigue around this one. But let's start with some numbers that you have for us on some individual players in this matchup.
Yeah, and we can first start just on more of a historical note. This game this week against the Seattle Seahawks on Christmas Eve will be the 200th Titans game ever played in Nissan Stadium. So
how about that?
How about that for a little bit of a milestone?
That's a lot of games.
It's a lot of games, and I don't know if it really means anything, but
it doesn't mean anything. I was not at the first game. My dad was at that first game.
Were you even alive at the first game?
Yeah, we were both barely alive.
Okay.
I don't think we were paying attention to football, but we were around.
Not.
We were around, and it was really good when they started, and then things got not so good, and then things got better, and then now they're trending back in the other direction. But hopefully they don't. As long as we don't have to, I mean, you and I won't be in this media market if we have to endure the 2010 to 2015 Titans, the dark ages. If that happens, we'll be moving to another market, I think. But
sure.
As long as Will Levis continues to show us some things, and as long as Mike Vrabel is still around, I do have faith that we're going to avoid some truly dark years. But 200 games, that's a big one.
Yeah, and with that, we can talk about the Titans' defense this past couple of weeks and how they've been a true bright spot on this team. The Titans have sacked the quarterback 16 times since Week 12. It's tied third most in the NFL, where on the other side of the ball here, the Seattle Seahawks quarterbacks have been sacked 13 times since Week 12, which is tied fifth most in the NFL. And one big guy who's been filling in the gap while Jeffrey Simmons and a lot of guys have been down is Nico Autry, who, despite being the old age of 33 or so.
I was about to say, Father Time is terrified of Nico Autry.
He continues to be so productive.
It's wild how much juice he still has.
He's tied for fourth in most individual sacks from Week 12 to Week 16. He's tied with Montez Sweat for 5 total sacks there. And then he is even beating some of the best, like TJ Watt and Nick Bosa, who only have 4.5 individual sacks during that period. Denico Autry has been really, really solid on this defensive line, and he's really working himself into demanding another contract from, if not the Titans, some other team.
Yeah, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, because we'll dive into all of this in the offseason. But with Autry, I'm fascinated to see what kind of number the market, his market value demands, because if he was doing what he was doing and was 3 years younger than he was, he would demand a pretty significant pay raise from where he currently is.
Yes.
But the question is, the Titans gave him this number I think this is his third year of his contract. I think he had a 3-year contract. 3 or 4 years ago, they gave him this contract, decided to pay him this amount of money coming off of his time with the Colts. And I would argue that on production alone, he has earned himself a pay raise, but does that production outweigh the literal years of his life, the miles on his tires that he has accumulated in the 3 or 4 years? I don't know. It's a rare circumstance in terms of a player in free agency to have somebody that has gotten demonstrably better, but has also gotten to the point where their age is a significant concern. But at this age, this kind of player, think about the best players at this position in their early to mid 30s. Typically, when they're still peaking like this, it's like, man, he's, JJ Watt, he's awesome out there when he's healthy, but he just, he can't stay on the field. That's not the case with Autry. He's on the field and he's doing the things all the time at the ripe old age of 33 in NFL years. So I don't know what they're going to do. I know that the Titans should do everything in their power to keep him because he's a really fantastic and versatile player on their defense. And he's like a heart and soul guy at this point, really. But it wouldn't shock me if some desperate team out there decided to bring him in as their veteran presence and overpay and price the Titans out. So that'll be something to keep an eye on in the offseason. Yeah,
and I think I agree with you, although he also did express interest in saying how much he loved this city and loved this team over the past 3 years and would like to continue playing. Once again, like with that production, I mean, during this last couple of weeks, he's been good all season, double-digit sacks this year. But in this, I mean, he is up there with some of the best right now. Trey Hendrickson, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, Khalil Mack, Josh Allen, all these guys up here. And then you have Denico Autry, the old man right here, along with some other guys. And it's just been very incredible for him. Another interesting thing that I think is worth noting in this matchup specifically is how these teams could look to start this game this week. And the Titans have been one that has started fast, as we've talked about. They start fast, and then
that's about all they do well.
In the second half, they cease to exist. But the Titans.
How about the third drive? You're being very generous by saying second half. The third or fourth drive, it starts to fall apart.
But the Titans have scored 14.2 points per game in the first half since week 12. That is tied 9th best in the NFL, while the Seattle Seahawks have allowed 17 points per game during the first half since week 12, which is the second worst in the NFL. So could this be a situation where the Titans just score a bunch of points and then they can continue to be bad in the second half?
That's what I was going to say. To some, that might be an encouraging number. To me, that just reeks of, okay, so it's going to be the exact same narrative, song and dance we've seen, where this team gets out to a 1, 2, 3 score lead in the first couple of drives, which is great. And then everybody in the world who knows this team watches and says, here they go. They're going to slowly start to let it slip away. Will they be able to hang on for dear life and win in an underwhelming fashion at the end, or will they lose in predictable fashion in the end? And I don't know the answer to that question. But that's one of the things, and we're gonna dive into a little bit what we're looking to see from this team. Like, what is there to garner from these next 3 games, these next 3 weeks for them, now that they are out of the playoff race, now that there's uncertainty at the quarterback position. That's one of those things for me. Can this team show the ability to not just succeed later in the game, but a lot was made this week after their performance last Sunday. This team can't adjust at halftime. This team can't make in-game adjustments. Is that on the coaching staff? Is that a result of the players just not being talented enough to make those adjustments? We talked about it with James Foster on Wednesday's show, which I 1,000% guarantee you will enjoy. I recommend going and listening to that one if you haven't. One of our best shows of the year for my money. But we dove into that, and I think it's an interesting discussion to have. Can this team show the ability to play strong early and trend in the right direction throughout the course of the game, as opposed to slowly letting things slip away?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And like you said, hanging on to a thread is something that this Titans defense, most specifically the secondary, is going to have to do this week, because with the Seattle team,
some good receivers on this team.
You do have some good receivers,
sure.
And one in which you made a little bit of a compilation this past week during the Monday Night Football game that kind of caught some traction.
Little comparison, yep.
Caught the eye of Rich Eisen today, as amongst other people.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you didn't see that?
No.
Okay, anyways.
That's cool. Hey, Rich.
Seattle wide receivers versus the Titans cornerbacks. It was a total mismatch today, in which the Seattle's Seahawks wide receivers have had an average of 171.4 receiving yards per game this season, which is 9th best in the NFL, whereas the Titans have averaged 175 receiving yards per game allowed to wide receivers, which puts them at 5th worst in the NFL, with the emergence kind of guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba,
sure.
And then, of course, the staples of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Is there any way that this Titans team can really look to limit some of those guys?
Yeah, drop 8. Just don't ever stack the box. In all seriousness, we've seen them in the past couple of weeks put on impressive performances by their standard, which is the very, very important qualifier. We saw them play a good game in the secondary against Miami, though it helped that Tyreek Hill was a semi-factor in that game and wasn't able to play at 100% for most of it. But nonetheless, they've got, without Tyreek on that team, there still were plenty of fast, talented guys that the Titans kept in check. The straw that stirs this defense's drink and has all year, and I think has allowed them to have more secondary success. Success is not the word I want. Less failure for the secondary, should we say, in recent weeks, is the fact that pass rush is back to their effective ways. It felt like for the entirety of the midseason for this team, the pass rush was non-existent, and it was hanging the secondary out to dry. And this is the last secondary in the NFL that you want to hang out to dry in that way. Now that you've got guys like Arden Key and Danico Autry and Harold Landry in particular playing at a more consistent, higher level that is a force multiplier for the back end of this defense, and it's allowing guys like Sean Murphy-Bunting and Roger McCreary and this sneaky, impressive safety group that I think has gone kind of under the radar. I was talking with Zach Lyons on a football show, another show here on the 440 Network earlier today, filling in for our buddy Braden, about how the grouping of Elijah Molden and Kayvon Wallace, a guy that was brought in midseason, and folks are starting to raise an eyebrow at, like, this cat's got something, and I think that he deserves to be brought back because he has been really lights out in the past couple of weeks. So you got Molden, you got Kayvon Wallace, and you've got Amani Hooker back there. The three of them are actually playing better as a group than this safety group was playing with Kevin Byard earlier in the season before the Titans traded him. Well, that's not to say that it's necessarily a result of them getting rid of the weak link or anything, but they are playing more consistent, and it's helping out big time. Mostly, in my opinion, limiting the explosives, because that's the big thing. Early in the season, we saw the secondary consistently getting burnt over and over, letting the defenders get behind them and allowing explosive plays. They are allowing plenty of catches, and they're allowing teams, especially between the 20s, to march up and down the field passing the ball, but they're not getting caught over the top, and that's a credit to the safeties in large part, doing their job and keeping the ball in front of them. And then I think kind of realizing, hey, I don't know why, but our red zone defense is literally the best in the league. Let's try to lean on that because we're not a great coverage unit as a whole. So let's just keep the ball in front of us. If they get in the red zone, cool, fine. Have your 3 points. We're not going to let you get in the end zone. And that's how we're going to try to win games. And it's worked with moderate success. Yeah. I was about to say it's worked great. No, it hasn't. It's worked with moderate success in recent weeks.
The bend don't break sometimes bends, but sometimes it is also broken.
It's mostly times. Bending. It's occasionally breaking.
And then finally, both these teams, well, at least historically, have been good rushing teams late into the season, as the Titans and Seattle Seahawks are average,
as opposed to that other Seattle team.
Average the most rushing yards in December and January per game since 2018, where the Titans in recent years have averaged 153.2 rushing yards a game, and the Seattle Seahawks average 147.5 a game since 2018 in those 2 months.
You know why that is? Because the Titans in recent years have been a dominant running team all year.
Yes.
And the Seahawks are a good running team who would always get the running backs all murdered in the first 4 weeks, and then they'd be healthy and come back in time for December. That's anecdotally, that feels like what it has been. It's like every year the Seahawks running back is dead, and then he comes back around the end of the year, and it's like, wow, they can run the ball when they have their guy back.
Yeah, and I think...
But they have their guys.
They do have their guys right now, and I feel like this is a tale of one team which may look to continue this trend with two very healthy guys in Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet, and another side where, due to just the downfall, I want to say, just not the downfall, but just like the taking off of Derrick Henry right now. In his older age.
Sure. Yeah. So we talked a long time about this on a football show today, and not to spend 30 minutes rehashing everything we said, but we dove into how I think everybody agrees Derrick Henry is not nearly as good as he was. This run game in terms of blocking is certainly not nearly as good as it was, but I think both of them individually are demonstrably better than they look together.
Mm-hmm.
They are, you've heard of force multipliers. I think Derrick Henry plus this offensive line in particular is a force divider.
Yes.
Because Henry, who was, at his peak, a do-it-all traditional back, you could have him do whatever, regardless of the circumstances. He could make up for any deficiencies. He's no longer that guy. He's lost a little bit of step. And so he still has a high-level elite skill set, but it's limited, right? That skill set is, if you get this guy 5 or 6 steps untouched, allow him to get a head full of steam, and he's rambling downfield, he will get up to a top speed that is unreasonably high for his size and weight, allowing him to run over guys and reach pay dirt. The issue is his acceleration has taken a significant hit, and his ability, because of this offensive line, to get those steps in untouched is not only is it diminished, it just doesn't really exist anymore, right? And so while you see the difference between Henry and Spears, take last game, for example, wasn't having great success. I think just at 3 yards per carry, right? But the difference is that kind of back can make up for a little bit the deficiencies of a bad pass blocking unit by getting to the edge quickly, accelerating quickly, being slippery and smaller and finding small creases and getting upfield. That's the kind of more, I think, in today's modern NFL, like that's, I think your average back looks more like Spears than Henry, obviously. And that's why I say this pass blocking unit, albeit a bad one, they are better than they look when they have Henry behind them because they aren't built for Henry. I'm reusing another analogy that I used a couple weeks ago, but the scene from Apollo 13, right? When they say we've got to fit this square air filter in this round air filter hole, and all we have is this, and they gesture to a table of duct tape and WD-40 and toothpicks and toothpaste. Like, that's what you're trying to do offensively from a scheme standpoint with this run game. That's what Tim Kelly's impossible task is recently, trying to make a Derrick Henry square filter fit into this offensive line round hole. It's just not compatible. And all of that being said, the Seattle team is bad defending the run. So maybe you see a little bit of not vintage is strong, a more traditional Derrick Henry running game because they aren't great at defending the run. If that is the case, good. I would love for, if this is the end for Derrick Henry in Tennessee, him to at least in one of these last 3 games have one of those, like, there it is. That's the one we can end on right there. I'm pessimistic that it'll happen, but if it does, this is because they've got Houston and Jacksonville left besides the Seattle team. Both of those teams have significantly better run defending units than the Seattle team. It feels like it's now or never for one of those games.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And those are our kind of notes for the game and kind of stats that could define a couple of the games.
So I have one more thing I want to discuss before we get into the news today. A little bit of a shorter episode because, again, there's not a whole lot to talk about with this team. The main preview point, which we've kind of buried the lead on, what's the quarterback situation going to look like? And we've heard different things from folks in and around the building this week. Of course, Will Levis dealing with what was initially reported to be a high ankle sprain. He's since gone on the radio and talked to us in the media pool on Wednesday about how he would describe it as a rolled ankle and not a high ankle sprain. I'm not positive what the mechanics are on that and what the difference is. Clearly, to him, in his mind, he thinks there is a difference. And he claims that he's played through both. And he claims that this is the right mentality, in my opinion. If I can get out there and play, I'm going to get out there and play. So it wouldn't shock me if he plays in this game. If it's up to him, I think that he will play. I don't know if it's going to be up to him or not. I think that the coaches and this team are going to be more, they're going to err more on the cautious side with him in this one, simply because he is the future of this team, simply because they don't want a situation where and I can't really envision a situation where they're concerned he could further injure himself along the same lines of his current injury that would keep, because you think what's the worst that could happen? He gets hurt and then he has 7 months off to recover. You just want to avoid the kind of injury where you're worried about his movement abilities for the rest of his career. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that likely comes in the form of something that's not just a simple ankle injury, but when you can't protect yourself back there, all of those injuries suddenly are on the table. And that's what they're going to be concerned about. And so they've talked a lot this week about how it's going to be, Mike Vrabel has confirmed it will be Ryan Tannehill if Levis can't go. If you asked me right this second, gun to my head, who's going to play, I think it's probably 65% Tannehill, 35%, 35%, good math, Will Levis. That's kind of the vibe I've gotten from folks in the know. It's still a work in progress. We didn't, not to give away your news, but we didn't see Levis working out today again out there on the field. Friday, of course, being the big day. Thursdays, a lot of guys take off. So you take that with a grain of salt, but he hasn't practiced once this week. Tim Kelly did tell us today that he doesn't necessarily have to practice in order for him to have confidence in Will's ability to go out there and execute a game plan. So whether he plays or practices tomorrow or not will be telling, but I don't think it's the final straw. Let's discuss what it would look like either way. And a lot of folks have been wondering, why would you roll Ryan Tannehill out there if Levis can't go? Why Tannehill over Willis? I think the primary concern, or the primary reason that a lot of folks aren't a fan of that, is because you feel like you're more likely to win that game if Ryan Tannehill is out there. And people are rightfully in full tank mode at this point. Yes, I think that is absolutely fair. Ryan Tannehill being in the lineup makes it more likely for you to steal a win here or there. Let me just go ahead and get this out of the way. I will be genuinely shocked if they don't win at least one of these last 3 games. That is not because I think they should win. That is not because I want them to win. That is not even necessarily because I think there's great reason on paper for them to win. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. It's the fact that Mike Vrabel is still the coach of this team. I know that this team in the locker room is still bought into him. And I know that they are the kind of group that is loving to play spoiler. And they've got 3 teams in a row here that all are on that playoff fringe, playoff hopeful area, the perfect kind of team to play at the end of the year when you don't have anything to play for and you have nothing to lose and you want to play spoiler. So I think it is way more. I'll tell you this. I think it's more likely they win 2 of these last 3 than it is that they lose all of these last 3. Did I say that right? Did I say win? Yeah. I think it's more likely they win 2 than win 0. I think they'll ultimately probably just steal 1. I don't know when that's going to come, but just prepare yourself. Those of you that are very anal about the draft position. I would bake in 1 more win. Maybe you get lucky and they lose another home overtime, or the regression luck gets them. But that being said, here's the basic math on Tannehill playing for this team. Obviously, they want to win, and they feel that he is going to be more conducive to them winning. But the analogy that I used on a football show today was this team has been in full find out mode, right? We're trying to evaluate each and every person on this team to get the best, clearest picture for us as to who we want to keep and who we want to move on from this offseason. And because of that, Ryan Tannehill is the 10th grade chemistry control that you put into your experiment that allows you to evaluate the other elements, right? And so you put Tannehill in there, you know what he is, you know what he'll do. He's got a rapport with a lot of the players on this team. He's going to allow you to, in my opinion, he's going to allow you to get a better sense from an evaluation, from an analysis standpoint of what you've got in these last 3 weeks with Treylon Burks, with Chigakonkwo, with Tyjae Spears, with Derrick Henry, with Kyle Phillips if he sees the field again, with guys like Chris Moore, who you may or may not be around next year. All of that is an easier evaluation for us if you put Statue Tannehill in there, that you know what he's going to do. You know he's going to stand in there and take a hit. He's not going to bail from clean pockets. You're going to get to evaluate your offensive linemen who you're trying to figure out who should and shouldn't stay, because Tannehill's not going to run around back there and make life difficult or easier on them. It's going to be very vanilla, very basic. If you put Willis out there, we've seen this. It becomes kind of muddy in terms of evaluating what you've got. And so besides the fact that he's more likely to help them win, he's easier to evaluate. It's also, the third reason is it is something that he's going to want to do because he's a competitor and because he wants to raise his free agency stock that is coming up quickly as much as he can. The note that he left everybody on, not necessarily to any fault of his own, in that Baltimore game is a bad one, right? He throws that interception, one that he couldn't step into all the way in London against Baltimore, and then we haven't seen him since. That's not what he wants to end on. He doesn't want, from a romantic standpoint, you don't want to end your time in Tennessee that way, and you certainly don't want that to be the last thing you have on tape for teams that are going to try to court you this offseason, and you're trying to get some money. The downside risk there is, given the state of this offensive line, somehow it has gotten worse from what it was then. It's certainly not gotten better. You've got some weapons in and out of the lineup here, and it wouldn't shock me if he came back and got himself killed again or made himself look really bad. Again, not to necessarily any fault of his own, but because the situation is so barren. So I was asked on a football show today, do I care who they play? The answer is not really. Not really. If I had my preference, I would prefer Tannehill.
I would too.
But if you saw, I saw some folks on the internet today being like, well, you need to figure out what you have in Malik Willis. Where have you been, man? What do you mean need to figure? We that's been figured out, boss. Like, we got that part. We got that down.
I mean, just from a more entertaining game, I think I want Ryan Tannehill out there because seeing it firsthand in London, to see Malik Willis just sometimes take 2 seconds and immediately fold and take another sack. It's just not something I want to watch.
Or stand in there and read 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 and then get murdered. And it's like, you got to throw the ball somewhere.
It's a lot more frustrating. I like a more entertaining game, and I think that obviously is in the hands of Ryan Tannehill.
I agree. Elliot in the comments asking thoughts on letting your opponent start their drives on the 20. I see, just eliminating the bend portion of the defense and just go right to the break part. I'll run that by the coaches next time I see them, Elliot. That's well done. It could save. I think it saved them a lot of time. I think it could save them some time. So we'll see how that goes. That's kind of all I have on this game. Do we want to get to some news and then the gauntlet?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What do we got in the news today?
Alrighty, we once again have the Tennessee Titans injury report, which I referred to yesterday on Twitter as a CVS
receipt, sure,
of some sorts. Let's talk about the guys. I'm just going to list them all off because there's no great way of doing this. Let's talk about the guys who have not practiced yet this week, both on Wednesday and Thursday. And here we go. Center Aaron Brewer with an ankle injury. Wide receiver Treylon Burks with dealing with an illness. Both linebackers Jack Gibbons and Luke Gifford with a back and hamstring, respectively.
Don't ask me who's going to play linebacker because I don't know.
Safety Amani Hooker with a knee injury. Will Levis with that ankle. TK McClendon with a shoulder. Sean Murphy Bunting with a hip. Jeffrey Simmons with a knee. Kayvon Wallace with a quad. And Trayvon Wesco with a shin injury. Is there anything to take out of any of these guys as you look back down the list? And while you look at that, I'll also note that yes, we are a little bit late to the news as this broke yesterday, but Nick Westbrook-Ikhines hand injury has landed him on injured reserve. He is done for the season.
That was surprising because we don't know. As far as I'm aware, he finished the game. We still don't know what the nature of that injury was. Obviously, it's one that's going to shut him down for the year. Just to kind of close the chapter on him, I think Titans fans should absolutely be hoping that he's brought back at the right price. He's a useful player, man. And he's had, for my money, his best season to date this year. It's a great story. And he got too much flack early on in his career, frankly, because as a UDFA, he was forced too quickly, really just at all into a situation that he shouldn't have been put in the first place. There was more than one game in his career in which he was wide receiver 1, that's not compatible with success. Yeah, no, that's not good. As a wide receiver 3, 4, 5 option, you can do so much worse than Nick Westbrook-Ikhines, and he's got rapport with this team, and he will be the guy that they want to keep around because of the way that they like to run the ball and his physicality. And it's just there's not a negative thing you can say about him besides the fact that he just has a limited ceiling. As a contested catch player, in terms of his length, in terms of his speed and separation ability, there are limits there. But they're not so limiting as to not wanting him on the team anymore. And I think that it's a good thing that he came, because we weren't sure. I mean, do you remember he wasn't brought back on his contract last year? The Titans essentially told him, go find a job. Good luck. Let us know what you find. He comes crawling back.
For $1.4 million, and people were angry about
that.
Right.
How dare you get a bargain on NWI? Unbelievable. You're bringing him back. So I think that's a good thing. As far as the rest of the laundry list here of guys, it's impossible to really have a strong opinion because, again, so much of this is rest related. In my opinion, so much of it will be determined by tomorrow's injury report. The guys that, if they were to not play, you start to get really concerned. I'll focus on the guys that have not practiced either day. If Aaron Brewer can't go, it's not the end of the world because he's not been playing super great. And you've got guys like Corey Levin on the roster who can step in and be serviceable on an already bad offensive line. Burks not practicing with an illness is annoying simply because he's a guy that would really like to see from an evaluation standpoint in these last 3 games. It's good that it's an illness, and hopefully he can just get over that quickly. Who else? Amani Hooker. Not to wish him away, but him not being out there wouldn't be at the end of the world, again, from my perspective, because it would mean I get to see more of Kayvon Wallace, and I want to see if he's real or not. Sean Murphy Bunting not being out there is a big one because that means you're going to see a lot more Trey Avery. You're going to see a lot more Eric Guerra, and that is not something you necessarily want. Coin,
you need Kayvon Wallace to actually play.
Is he on here too? Dadgummit.
Wallace also
so he's got a quad. Okay, so here's the issue.
Practice this week.
So if Hooker and Wallace are both out,
the point of
Elijah Molden better get that cardio up, and everybody else, I don't know who else is going to play the position.
The point of the story is, man, tomorrow's injury report is the big one here, I think.
Yeah, it's speaking of breaking news here, because Seattle is a West Coast team. I literally just got the Seattle side of this, so I can read that out. They've got, I mean, this is the first time the PDF that I've received is 2 pages long. So is
that a first ever?
I don't think so. It's first this season. It's the first one this season that is like that. But some guys that are notable: D. Eskridge, one of their wide receivers, has not practiced this week. Ken Walker with a shoulder did not practice either day. Jamal Adams is kind of a unique situation, but he's not practiced. Rookie cornerback Devon Witherspoon with a hip has not practiced. Julian Love, the guy who made the game-sealing interception on Monday Night Football, he has been not practicing for personal reasons, so no reason to believe that he won't be out there, assuming everything's all right in his world. Who else on here of interest?
I think you got to the big ones.
Abe Lucas, the tackle with a knee is limited today, so if he's not out there, that's chop licking time for the Titans pass rush, but it sounds like he's trending towards playing. No Bobby Wagner, but he's resting. Frank Clark with an illness didn't practice. Noah Fant, Evan Brown. Okay, yeah, so the biggest name on there is Abe Lucas.
Well, I think the biggest there is Abe Lucas, and then also Devin Witherspoon as well.
Yep.
Along with Ken Walker, 3 guys
those are the 3
who have not practiced yet this week, who are big time to watch tomorrow. But the other one on the other side, Geno Smith has logged 2 full practices, as Pete Carroll said earlier this week. He will be the quarterback this weekend.
Is that not a little bit underwhelming? Like I kind of want to give me more lock mania. Like I needed to see one of these in Nissan Stadium on Sunday, and I might have to just look at the sideline, which is upsetting. But what else we got in the news today?
Yeah, 2 other things here. As you noted yesterday, the Titans signed linebacker Garrett Wallow from Houston's practice squad, so that could be an answer to your question: who will play linebacker this weekend for the team? And then also, kind of a fun story is Caleb Farley returns to practice the past 2 days. He's been out there at least playing as a player on the other team for practice purposes, but it's good to see him out there. Your thoughts on him returning?
Well, we've only gotten the question, when is Caleb Farley returning, all year. So it's nice to finally say now, guys. The answer is now. I figured it would come eventually. We're going to ask, that's going to be the number one thing that those of us in the media are going to the Titans facility tomorrow for, is to ask Mike Vrabel what's his availability situation. Everybody else that has been asked about him this week so far has said, ask Mike. And we've not had a chance to do that since we knew that he was back out there practicing. I don't think that he's going to play. He's still healing up. His nerves are still, his back, spinal cord situation. He's still healing up from another back surgery that he had, the most recent one from this offseason. And he said, I think either today or yesterday, he said to somebody in the media pool that he's back out there practicing, and he feels healthy, but he does feel like a bird with clipped wings, is the way that he described it. He's still trying to get some of that quick twitch back and confidence in his ability to move at full strength. And so because of that, I don't think he'll be a factor, but I would love for him to be out there at least sometime before the end of the season. Not holding my breath on that, but it would be nice to see whether or not they can get him out there. But this week, I would not count those chickens just yet.
And that's going to do it for our news segment.
All right, that's producer JT with the news, and that means we've just got one last thing to get to today, our favorite segment of the week, the Best Bet Gauntlet Week 16 edition. JT, I'm currently operating off of my phone. I don't have it in front of me. What are our record updates for the year? And then we can dive into our picks this week.
Yeah, so Easton, you are currently, you are getting up there now. You are now 11 games over 500, which is great, from earlier this season at 46, 35, and 4. And I am 50, 31, and 3.
19 games over 500.
Which puts our overall record to 96, 66, and 7, which puts us at 59.2% on the year.
You can't ask for better than that. Can't ask for better than that. Nearly 60% on the year. We're looking to keep that rolling this week. And because you once again had a 4-1 week last week, I am up first with my first pick of the Week 16 Best Bet Gauntlet. Give me the Baltimore Ravens plus 5.5. They are on the road at San Francisco. This is easily the game of the week. I believe it's Sunday Night Football.
Monday Night Football.
It's Christmas Night Football. Yep. Man, you know what? An advanced apology to my family, who I will be ignoring on Christmas night. I will be watching this game intently. I think that this number is just too big. This screams field goal game to me. I think that Baltimore has the better team on defense and on special teams. They don't have the better offense, but they can absolutely hang. As I'm floundering here for the notes that I studiously wrote down on this game and then have not pulled up. This game feels to me like the moment when Brock Purdy's MVP case is either locked in or he finally gets scratched off the ballot. I would love for it to be scratched off the ballot because we could spend the whole episode on that. I'm not buying that. But San Francisco is likely to miss some key defensive players in this one. Last week, they allowed Arizona to run for 8 yards per carry on them. They are very run-onable, and this Ravens team will happily oblige.
Especially if Javon Hargrave and a couple of those guys miss it once again.
Bingo.
On that front.
Bingo.
Defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco's defense allowed 28, 27, 29 points. It's 20-something points to an Arizona team. I think the Baltimore is capable of scoring 30-plus on this defense as long as they don't have a unprecedentedly bad performance.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be the best team that San Francisco faces in a long while if you look at the teams that they've played recently. I'm also just generally going to be taking these games AFC contenders over NFC contenders just because of the disparity between the two conferences, in my opinion. San Francisco this year, they are 1-2 against the rest of the AFC North. So against the Browns, Bengals, and Steelers, they're 1-2. I think the Ravens make it 1-3 at the very least. I see this ending on a field goal. 5.5 is way too big. So give me Baltimore plus 5.5.
Yep, I like that pick. I think it's the best pick of the week, mostly because how can you not take Lamar Jackson? He's 15-1 in his last 16 games against the NFC right there. Pretty simple.
And so naturally, I'll go 4-1, and that'll be the one I miss.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Of course. With my first pick here, I'm taking the Pittsburgh Steelers plus 2.5 against my Cincinnati Bengals.
A Mike Tomlin spot.
Yeah, I mean, it is, you got to do it sometimes. I've done it before against this Bengals team. I'm doing it once again. This number has been floating between 2.5 and 3. If I can get it at 3, I'd love it there. I'm also taking it at 2.5. This is truly just I'm selling on Jake Browning. I think it comes to an end here as he
he's played the Steelers team once this year, and it was easily his worst game.
Yes, but the Steelers, after allowing 30 points or more under Mike Tomlin, are 26-10-1 against the spread. It's the second best of any coach. The Steelers are also 43-28-1 under Tomlin after failing to cover in their last game by 7 points or more. Steelers also off a loss by double digits, or 22-12 against the spread under Tomlin. They're a divisional home dog.
Autoplay.
It's an autoplay for Mike Tomlin. I'm taking the Steelers.
Yep, I'm with you on that bet. We saw it get to 3 earlier today. If you're wanting to hang around and play a little risky, maybe wait to see if you get a 3 again before game day. But I would keep an intent eye on it because if it pops, it's not going to stick. With my second bet of the Week 16 best bet gauntlet, I'm taking Atlanta. This team. This is me trying to catch a falling knife in the Atlanta Falcons. The Colts are frauds. We've been talking about this. They're going to be a team that if they get into the playoffs are going to meet a rather unceremonious end. They've been getting away with some things recently. Now, it sounds like they're getting Pittman back. It's crazy how concussion protocol suddenly becomes a suggestion at the end of the year. Nobody comes back all September, all October, all November, the week after a bad concussion. But then I've seen like 3 such instances this week for teams that are desperately trying to it's all a joke. People, we bend the rules. That's the NFL for you. That being said, if they get Pittman back and Taylor, all of those guys were questionable. They still technically are questionable, but trending in the right direction. I still think that this Atlanta team stock is too low in the market. That game last week, it pushed the perception too negatively, in my opinion. They were playing outside in horrendous conditions. They still should have won the game if not for Ritter actively handing that win away to the Panthers. They're going to be back indoors. They're going to be back at home. It's going to be Heineke instead of Ritter, which is a minor upgrade in my opinion. The Colts, for their part, this is more a bet against the Colts really than a bet on Atlanta. The last 2 months, they've been on this hot streak, and you've probably seen graphics on social media about how, besides the undefeated San Francisco 49ers, the Colts at 5-1 are the hottest team in the last 6 weeks or whatever. I've seen a number of variations of that statistic, and it's true. However, when you dive into what they've actually done in the past 2 months or so, they've beaten Tennessee twice, Carolina, New England, and Germany in a game in which they got outgained by 100 yards and won because New England threw it away. Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. They've not beaten anybody. Their turnover margin in those games, 13-5, and they've been outgained in 4 of the 6 games. They are frauds. Minshew is due for some some turnover regression. I love what Steichen's doing. He's performing magic tricks every week. I think that the magic runs out in this one. I think Atlanta gets they're the more desperate team here, in my opinion. At home, they're playing for their division. Arthur Smith playing for his job. Give me Atlanta to win outright. -2.5. I think they win by a field goal.
Yeah, with my next pick here, once again, not going a week without betting the Tennessee Titans game, but I feel like
at this point we just have to finish up the season. We got to do it.
But at the same time, if you've noticed, I think we're like on a 3-game losing streak when
betting
the Titans game. Yeah. I think it's because we're just so ingrained with this Titans team, we kind of psych ourselves out. And
we're too close. So all we see are the trees, and we can't see the forest. Yeah.
However, I think that this trend bucks this week.
Okay.
I'm taking Seattle -2.5. I locked this in earlier this week. If you follow us on Twitter, mostly because I thought this was going to happen, and now the line is 3.5 in favor of the Seattle Seahawks. I like them still underneath the field goal here. This Titans team just continues to throw away games, especially in the second half. And Seattle, which is a second half team, coming off a huge win. Some people might think this is a letdown spot for them. I think the momentum for them is only just beginning right now. They're getting back healthy. This is a team who earlier in the season just kind of didn't put it all together, but this is where Pete Carroll really starts to get his team going, and especially with them very much in the playoff race. They have a lot to play for. They are the more desperate team, obviously needing to stay alive, and getting them with 2.5 right here, especially like with what we talked about today. There's more likely chance than not that Ryan Tannehill plays. He's going to be rusty. He's not played in a while. So I'm taking Seattle -2.5.
All right. With my third pick of the Week 16 Best Bet Gauntlet, it's time to fade the Bears, kids. I'm taking Arizona +4 for a couple of reasons. If you look at Chicago's, again, another hot streak that requires context over the past month or so, their defense has forced 14 turnovers in the last 4 games. That's more than 3 a game. That's not sustainable. Kyler, for the Arizona Cardinals part, as a road dog in his career, he's 15-4, 79% with 2 pushes in his career. So that's a number that's an auto play for me. Arizona, sneaky last week against San Francisco, a game in which they got beat by double digits. They actually outgained the 49ers by 30 yards in that one, had over 400 yards of offense against this San Francisco defense, and they scored 29 points in that game. This is the top of the market for Chicago. I think that Arizona is better than folks are letting on, and for that reason, I think that 4 is too big a number. This would, again, like the San Francisco-Baltimore game, it feels like a field goal game to me, and so if you're going to give me a whole point over that field goal, I'm going to take the dog. Give me Arizona +4 at the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I like that pick. With my next pick, go into this Buffalo game, and when we bet Buffalo, we say when they are favored, they win big. Currently, the number is 12.5.
Did they win that big?
I don't think they win.
I don't think they win that big.
I don't think that the week after the Chargers lose by more than 35 points to the Las Vegas Raiders, I'm taking the Chargers +12.5 now. Here's why.
That number may just get bigger, by the way. I mean, talk about a game you should wait to bet.
Yeah,
you might get a flat 14 by Sunday, so just chill on that one.
Here's why I think that this is such an important number right here for this team. They're coming off a loss here where they fire their coach. Once again, this is a
dead cat bounce.
This is a team that I think gave up on Brandon Staley.
You think that? I know that. Okay. Yeah. I actually watched that game. We were contractually obligated to do so, and I know that that's what happened. So
either way, this is a team that now is looking to maybe prove something. They got absolutely disrespected by a team that I don't think is much better than they are last week. Now they're going to play a Buffalo Bills team, which I'm kind of minor selling on. It's kind of weird, right? Like I'm selling on this Buffalo Bills team this week.
You are selling the market value. You're not selling the team,
but
right?
Also,
you're selling how high they are in the market.
I may or may not have put a little sprinkle on Bills to win the Super Bowl
today.
That's
what I'm saying. The current market value is slightly too high. That's all it is.
So I'm playing both sides here with this Bills team, but this number is just too much. And the trends are here to back me up as well. Teams to lose by 20 plus the week before, facing a team who 2020, that's good for 59%. Big home dogs. of 7 points.
That's an all-time one right there. I love that.
59-38-1 against the spread, 60.8% since 2022. And then this is the big one here for me. Teams as double-digit underdogs after big losses last 20 years of 35 or more points, 19-4-1 against the spread. I think this Buffalo Bills team, after, of course, coming off those 3 big games in their past 3 weeks, going to come out a little flat in this one. So I'm going to take Easton Stick and the Chargers with the points.
My terrible at football namesake. I think you're right. I think this is a too big number. With my 4th pick of the Week 16 Best Bet Gauntlet, I'm taking a home division dog. Give me Minnesota +3. They are at home against Detroit in this one. Couple of reasons why. First of all, a home division dog, always an auto play, typically. They are a much, much, much more desperate team. Minnesota is in this one. They are fighting for their playoff lives. Detroit pretty much already locked things up. I'm leaning heavily. This handicap is leaning heavily on Brian Flores' defense and that heavy blitz rate that they have. Goff, when you get him off his spot, not very great. When you look at the advanced efficiency metrics, he drops about 20 spots on snaps in which he's blitzed as opposed to snaps in which he's not. Amongst quarterbacks this season. And then you look at some of the skill players that are starting to come back or break out. Ty Chandler starting to break out a little bit. You're going to have Justin Jefferson back, which is a big deal for them success-wise. And then Nick Mullins has got a week under his belt in this offense, so he can only get more comfortable in that regard. It's a big luck rankings mismatch here as well. Detroit, one of the top, I believe, top 5, maybe just top 10, but one of the top 10 at least teams in the luck rankings this season. The Minnesota Vikings, for their part, a bottom 10 team in that regard. So for all of those reasons, I think this is too big a number. Maybe in push territory here. Would love to get the 3 in the hook by game day, but for now, I'll take Minnesota +3 at home against Detroit.
Yeah, with my next pick, we got to wrap this up soon because this game's about to start. I'm taking the Los Angeles Rams -4.
Go bet it now. Bet now.
New Orleans. I got this one also locked in. It's now 4.5. I locked this in earlier at 4. This is a classic, and if you follow me, I'm 19 games over 500. This is a classic. JT thinks sharps are dumb in this one. Last week, I disrespected the New Orleans Saints. They disrespected me right back, just ruining my boy, Tommy DeVito.
Tommy Cutlets, no.
They are playing, I think they're playing maybe the quarterback that's on the most on fire right now in Matt Stafford. He looks so impressive right now.
So good, dude. And nobody's watching, and it's a shame because he's playing such good football.
I think this team is really putting it together. I don't think this LA defense is as bad as people think as well. Cooper Kupp is finally looking like Cooper Kupp again, and paired with Puka Nacua, this team is able to score points on you. I think this is another spot here where New Orleans, it just is the worst team, and I think this LA team, even though they haven't gotten a really good quality win, they've still been beating these bad teams by a touchdown or more. So I like the Rams, and I'm going to take them -4.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think this is a matchup between a team that is hoping to get into the playoffs and is absolutely not going to be a threat to anybody in New Orleans versus a team in the Rams who, at this point, I think a lot of teams in the NFC
they could play the Eagles, and
they're hoping to not see the Rams in the playoffs. They're a real threat, and they've got guys on that team and a coach that can absolutely make some noise. So I like that bet a lot. With my 5th and final pick of the Week 16 Best Bet Gauntlet, keeping it incredibly simple, JT. I was updating our season-long metrics on success rate with certain teams, betting them this year. I was doing that earlier this week, and I realized I am 4-0 betting on the Dallas Cowboys. And what have I done every single time I bet the Cowboys? I have said the same thing to open the handicap. This team does not play well against good teams. They have not beaten a good team all year. The closest they got was beating a banged-up Philadelphia Eagles team in a game that was a scheduled loss for them. Not counting it. They just do this every single year, and this year is no exception. When they play bad teams, they beat up on them so much that you start to believe, just to have your heart ripped out of your chest when they play a decent team. And this Miami Dolphins team is absolutely going to be looking for a win here to keep the red-hot Buffalo Bills off of their heels in the division. I think that they want it more. They're the home team. They're a slight home favorite. It's as simple as Dallas can't beat good teams. I'm going to continue to fade them against good teams until they show me just once that they can do it. Give me Miami -1.
Yeah, with my final pick in the Week 16 Best Bet Gauntlet, This is the grossest pick I think I've made all year. Personally, I really think this is such a gross one, but I think that it's the right side, and I'm taking Tommy DeVito once again in the New York Giants, taking them plus 13.5 going to Philadelphia. This could be a total spot here where the Eagles finally get something right, but this team is just so out of sync right now.
I think you're either going to cover this easily
or get blown out,
or your bet's going to be dead in the first 7 minutes.
But I it's just too many points for me, man. And maybe it gets to that full 14, and I'll be taking it there as well. But this is a Philadelphia team where there are they're looking internally. They're not focusing on the teams they're playing. They're focusing internally. We've heard all week the narrative that Jalen Hurts and this team is focused on right now is that this team is just internally not executing. They're not focusing on this Giants team, and this Giants team is looking to maybe kind of ruin their season. This is another spot just like with the Titans against the Texans or Jags the next couple of weeks. This could be a spot where they look to sabotage a team like the Eagles, who are playoff hopefuls. I don't think last week was truly the Giants at their worst, but I think this Giants team is going to be looking to bounce back against a divisional opponent, and a divisional opponent at 13.5, playing a Philadelphia team that has looked not very good this season. I'm going to take the points.
All right. So in review of our Week 16 best bet gauntlet, JT rocking with the Steelers plus 2.5 at home against Cincinnati, Seattle minus 2.5 on the road at Tennessee, the Chargers plus 12.5 at home against the Bills, the Rams minus 4 at home against New Orleans, and the New York Giants plus 13.5 at Philly. I'm rocking with Baltimore plus 5.5 at San Francisco, Atlanta minus 2.5 at home against the Colts, Arizona plus 4 at Chicago, Minnesota plus 3 at home against Detroit, and Miami minus 1 versus Dallas. Good luck to both of us. And with that, we have finished our show for this Thursday. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Just a quick scheduling note before you leave. We will be live Sunday afternoon, as early after the game as we can possibly manage. We'll keep you updated on Twitter at Hot Read Pod. Make sure to follow that account so you know exactly when. But we'll be recapping immediately following or shortly immediately after the Titans play the Seahawks this Sunday on Christmas Eve. We'll have a at least some form of a recap show, maybe brief, maybe not, before everybody can, including ourselves, get to our Christmas Eve activities. So look forward to that. I don't know if we'll have a Tuesday show. It's 50-50. We certainly will be back next Thursday. So at the very least, look for us on Thursday. We'll keep you updated on what next week with the holidays looks like. But until then, that is our show. Again, come check out BoomBozz Craft Pizza and Taphouse. Follow us on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram at Hot Read Pod for all of your show content and information on when we go live. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. Until Monday, until Christmas Eve, everybody enjoy your pre-Christmas weekend. Watch some good football. And for producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. We'll talk to you then.